Jeromy is here. The one and only Jeromy Sonne, founder and CEO of Daypart AI. Jeromy is deeply steeped in the ad tech world. He's a builder. He also happens to be located here in Austin, Texas. I have heard that he is going to be wearing a Stetson as he comes inside of here. And
Wow.
Colin, he said that his goal was to Stetson Mog you. That's what he said.
Dang.
He said that. That's not me. That's him. And I didn't want to stir up any controversy before he came in here, but I just wanted to say that.
Look, here's the deal. And guess what? I'm going to say this. I became a little bit more cowboy this weekend because day of my wedding, my shoes didn't work. I said, F it. Get those shoes out of here.
Get out of here.
You know where I went? To Kova's, baby. I got myself some black cowboy boots.
Whoa.
Got some sharp cowboy boots.
Oh,
I got married in those bad boys day of. You can bring the Stetson, but I got married in some sharp cowboy boots.
Are you wearing them right now? You don't have to answer that.
I'm not.
Okay. I'm not either.
I cleaned them off. It was muddy.
I'm barefoot on this show.
Nice.
I am. I'm wearing pants. Don't worry. I'm fully dressed, but I'm barefoot on this show.
We're like Rick Rubin. We just go barefoot everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. We must bring Jeromy inside of this show. He's got a little playbook for us on analyzing and making sure that you are not getting frauded when it comes to buying everywhere and every way. And to be honest, like I wanted to bring him on here to like talk about what Daypart does. He told me that they have got like all of the data that ever exists.
Ooh.
They scrape every Shopify store every 2 weeks, bro.
Whoa. That's a lot of data.
Yeah, it is. We must bring the man himself inside of this show. Jeromy Sonne, get in here. Get in.
Let's go.
Sharp. You, that hat, and that stash, my friend. Welcome to this show, sir.
Oh, yeah. Thank you very much, sir. And yes, as you mentioned, I am also in Austin, so we'll have to hang out sometime.
We shall have to. We have to.
Good time.
You know, my dream, Jeromy, my dream is for this HQ, which is in an unknown location. My dream is for this to be like the unofficial hub of Ecomm in Austin, and everybody just comes here all the time.
That would be cool.
That's the dream.
That would be genuinely very cool. I would love that.
That's the dream that we're working on. Okay, brother, you have got to give background on you and background on Daypart, because I will say the things that you do and the things that you know and the stuff that Daypart does, I think I get maybe like 20% of it. I mean, you guys do so much. You got so much data. Just Google Earth out for us a little bit. Give us background on Jeromy and Daypart and everything you guys do.
Yeah. I'll give you the quick Jeromy background, right? Which is just a series of accidents that ended up where I'm at today. So, basically, I never started out wanting to get into advertising. It was a total accident, right? And so what happened was I was in college and I was trying to figure out my life, and I was going to join ROTC and doing that thing. And then I met a girl who's now my wife, and I was like, I probably shouldn't go and, join the military if I want to do that.
Might ought to stick around a little bit.
Nothing but love for our veterans, but not for me. And so well, I got to figure something else out. And then my buddy was like, hey, can you help me figure out Facebook ads for this mobile app? And then we took that mobile app to #1 grossing in back when it was iTunes and Play Store pretty early on in like 2011. And that has a way of hijacking your career. So
yeah, it does.
I did that for a long time, did a lot of e-com advertising after the mobile app stuff. And then around 2018 or so, started getting into ad tech, right? Went over to the dark side of the force, basically. And had a lot of interesting experiences there. Started a company called Decibel that was basically trying to turn podcast ads into like kind of an automated process. Unfortunately, that didn't work out, but, learned a lot, scaled it pretty high. We were doing 10 million revenue or something like that. We ended up failing, and then, went from there, consulted a bit, and then started Daypart. And so the interesting thing is that like you would think that these are like very tight communities, ad tech and advertising, but most people have not done both, right? And so it's
Yeah.
really interesting, and they don't really talk that much either. So there's like this like weird divide where like the actual tools that people are using and the people that are using them, huge communication gap, right? And so I think it's like interesting problems to solve there for sure. And you know, we're kind of doing a lot of stuff around that, trying to basically, you know, verify everything, right? Like at its core, Daypart is really a verification company, right? And so, you know, whether you're talking about did your ads run where they're supposed to run, right? Or even more broadly, like, you know, is this store selling a product that they should be able to sell? Or is to wit with your Oasis thing earlier, right? And no comment on them specifically, but like, are the ingredients in this supplement that
Yeah.
they say are on the label, right? And
Yeah.
it's a big deal. And for what it's worth, yeah, I am actually in the process of setting up an actual lab to test all of this.
Oh!
So I'll throw my hat into that arena for sure. We're not doing a consumer app, but yeah, you do actually have to test each and every one of them,
Yeah.
right? Because otherwise you're just relying on people telling you the truth, right? All the way down the line from the manufacturer to the brand itself, all of that stuff. So you got to have that first party data, right? Everybody loves to talk about first party data in advertising. You need first party data in physical, actual molecules and atoms out in the world, right? And so where we started though is, yeah, we scrape somewhere between like 8.5 million and 12 million Shopify stores every 2 weeks, right?
Crazy.
We get all of the product info, all of the tech that they're using, everything, essentially, right? And so with that, what we're adding in right now is a bunch of tools to help folks advertise more effectively, make sure that their ads actually ran where, you know, folks are saying that they ran. I think that, you know, Meta and Google, as much as there's a lot of problems there, right? I'm not a big defender, you know, not like a passionate advocate. I have no stock in Meta and Google, but actually don't have any stocks at all. I suck at investing. I'd lose a ton. So
I don't either, brother.
yeah, but the interesting thing there, right, is you know, the programmatic world comparatively outside of the sandboxes, as it were, it's the Wild West. And I'm not just saying that because I'm wearing a Stetson, but like, yeah, there's complicated supply chains, lots of folks in there that are misrepresenting what it is that they're doing. And, you know, as I see a lot of like e-com brands and everything like that expand out into stuff like connected television, audio, and digital out of home are usually the big ones folks are talking about. You got to be careful, right? You gotta take care to make sure that you're actually verifying you know, that what people are telling you is true, right? From like a first party perspective. And you can use Daypart for that. You can use a lot of different tools for that, right? Or you can do it yourself. And so I just want to make sure that folks are, you know, their advertising dollars aren't being taken by bad actors, essentially. So
It's crazy to me that happens.
Oh, yeah.
I guess like I guess I'm just, you know, kind of living ignorance is bliss here. But I would just assume like whatever you said it happened. You said it worked. Like this is what I got.
And it's complicated, sophisticated fraud, right? Like people are like spoofing a lot of things. They're doing a lot of nasty stuff that, you know, looks legitimate. But then when you start peeking under the hood and poking around, you say, wait a second, that doesn't make any sense at all, right? And so you can't take folks at their word. And just to give you an idea of the scale, people say something like between a third and 50% of all ads, period, are some form of fraud, right? Like they are straight up bull. I don't know if I can swear on this show.
You can,
crap, right?
Hit
Okay,
it.
yeah, they're straight up bullshit, right? Like, and so, you know, that's like a broad range, right? It's everything from stuff like the ad didn't run at all and they just took your money, right? Or stuff like you see this a lot in like mobile, right? Where like a user is forced to click an ad and they count that as an ad click and charge you for it, right? Or it clicks automatically. You'll see stuff like you know, it says it's connected television and it's running in a mobile app, which is a lot cheaper, and they're keeping the spread on those CPMs, right? And so there's a lot of sophisticated ways. That said, there's also a lot of common sense things you can do to keep yourself from getting burned, right? Questions you can ask and like things that you can implement that stops you from, you know, getting taken advantage of and making sure that your advertising dollars are reaching real humans and you're actually getting growth for your brands, right? And so I think
Wild.
that's really the focus. Yeah.
I'm on your website right now. I absolutely love the design of your website, by the way. I think it's
Thank you.
fantastic. I also love your tagline, trust nothing, verify everything. Powerful.
Right. I like
Absolutely
it.
powerful.
Jeromy.
Where was the actual catalyst inflection point for creating this? Because I remember, I guess this was a couple of months ago where I remember about the creatine gummy scandal that broke. I don't know if
Oh
you
yeah.
remember this. This was huge. And then basically a massive influencer on YouTube that I follow was trusting all the gummies. And then he was like, you know what? I'm going to pay for my own, third party testing, and I'm going to show you the actual creatine amounts in all of these. Turns out like 90% of them weren't good. That really perked my ears up to, I want something like this for physical goods to make sure that everyone's being legit. Where did this actually become a catalyst for you where I'm going to say, I'm going to build a company around this?
Yeah, so it's really interesting, right? I wouldn't say there was like necessarily, well, I will say there was one specific catalyst. So basically, my last company, Decibel, failed because a customer walked on us and left us bag holding about $2 million. Right?
Oh,
And so we had to like basically, yeah, so they were our biggest advertiser. Not going to name names on here or anything like that, but you've heard of them. And so, yeah, they walked and they left this bag holding about $2 million. So I got a real justice streak, you could say, after that,
I
right?
think so. I think so.
Yeah. And so, I was
Street
consulting, I was
justice.
running ads, things like that. But then I started doing some interesting projects for consulting where it was folks that were, not necessarily brands that were trying to understand the ad tech industry. I kind of, especially with like stuff like AI ads and things like that coming up, there's a lot of like sophisticated folks outside of our immediate circle, that are trying to evaluate these companies for various applications and stuff. And so I kind of fell into that by accident, ended up doing really well with it. So this is kind of like a natural extension essentially of like the freelance analyst work that I started doing from a consulting basis, right? While I was still running ads. And so now that takes up most of my time. But yeah, this is essentially like an automation of a lot of that process, right? Because when you do this kind of analyst work, especially when it's like very, very high stakes, like somebody is about to make some kind of commitment that could be tens or hundreds of millions of dollars, right? You can't assume anything. You have to go to the source and double verify every single thing up and down, right? Like, so independent sources both saying the same thing, or collect it yourself, right? Like, it's a very, very like, what do they call it? Like stochastic, like questioning, right? Like what lawyers do essentially, which is like you pick apart each and everything and you question each of it, and you have to, any single claim that's made has to be backed up. And so I got a real muscle for that, and it turns out I'm pretty good at it. And so this is really like me taking my analyst work that I was doing as a consultant and trying to turn it into a product, right? Which is, how do we build a giant graph of all of this data, how it maps to each other relationship wise, and then, look for anomalies essentially. And that's where the AI comes in, right? Because you can't use AI to go collect this data because it hallucinates and things like that, right? What it's really good at is flagging anomalies for humans to then go check out. So you can kind of 80-20 your work because you don't have to look at everything. You can just zoom in on the weird stuff right away. And so that's what we're looking at with advertising, right? Which is like, hey, typical ad campaigns look like this, right? But we're seeing a bunch of weird stuff over here, right? Like, this is, for instance, like this CTV is too cheap, right? Like, you can think like, okay, this platform, maybe they're great. Maybe there's lots of times too where you look at something and you say, well, that actually good for them. They innovated in some way, right? But a lot of times also, it's something sketchy's going on, right? And so you start to look for these, like, basically where it breaks the pattern, and then zoom in on that and try and come up with answers, essentially, like mechanically. So that's how we're helping with ad fraud,
Have you found on the flip side of that? So obviously you are identifying bad actors, but on the flip side of that, have you also identified good actors within the space where you have basically, you can put a stamp of approval and say basically a day part stamp of approval of like, these guys are fantastic. We have, we've analyzed like 200 million pieces of data from them. They're amazing 99% of the time.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. One call out. I'm a big fan of Nobody's perfect, by the way, right? So I wouldn't use the word stamp of approval, right? But like there's
Sure.
definitely ad platforms that I think tend to be on the more right side of doing things, and agencies as well that tend to do a good job. Corey Dobbin over at Other Side, great guy, does a lot of interesting work. He takes, I think he takes the quality seriously. That's just one agency, and we work with them. Just to full disclosure.
Awesome.
But another kind of example is I really like Freewheel, which Universal Ads is a part of. They do a pretty good job too. Beeswax, that whole family of products under Comcast, definitely big fans of them, right? And so that's like an example of generally like the hit rate for weird stuff lower, right? So that's that's definitely something that I like to see, right? Like there is good people in the space too. I don't want to make it sound like it's doom and gloom, but it's there's some of them I assume are good people, but they are there's definitely some good stuff too. So it's not all bad.
Jeromy, do this for me. Just make up a situation. Somebody's coming to you in our space. They're coming to you for fill in the blank. And then what you would counsel them, okay, think about it this way. You want to ask why. And then, let's say that relationship goes deeper, day part gets involved. You are doing that for them. Could you just make up a situation for us and kind of walk us through what it would look like, what we should be thinking about asking, et cetera?
Yeah, totally. Right. So a good example, I actually had a call with a big, public company agency, right? Like they're on the stock market and all that. I'm not going to say who, but right before this, which is they said, we're having a hard time sorting through what the trash is, what the brand safety issues are, all of that stuff with mobile apps, right? And so they come to us and they say, yeah, we think we've got CTV pretty well figured out. We think we've got display pretty well figured out. Can you generate us a list of what mobile apps are, legitimate for our clients to like advertise on, especially like the brand safety ones? And so how that mechanically actually works behind the scenes is we're doing stuff like decompiling the apps, right? Looking at the actual code, doing packet capture, seeing what they're sending back and forth, right? What ads are actually showing up, what kind of content's actually showing up, using AI to screen all of that stuff. Wow. And then we generate them a list and we say, hey, these 60,000 mobile apps, you put those in your allow list, right? Or if you're using Meta, you want to use a block list. Another example, is for advertisers and then this is an innocuous example, right? I'm not saying this is like a bad example, but like advertisers that, want to be a little more specific with their buying and, prioritize unique reach. We put a free product out there, which is just basically like, here's a list of all the AppLovin apps, right? So if you want, put those in Meta and exclude them. So the Meta Audience Network and the AppLovin are separate and you can get better reach, not overlap, not bid against yourself, right? Since a lot of times they're in the same apps, that sort of thing. So really it's about efficiency. In a lot of cases, it's not necessarily nefarious, right? It's about efficiency, right? In other cases, it's things like, hey, we're running the ads in this place, right? Something feels off, right? And so what we'll do is we'll dive in and we'll look at like their log files, which is every individual impression, right? With dozens of different categories between them. And we'll look at things and we'll say like, hey, look, like this is actually a crazy one. There was somebody that we were working with that was running apps on a mobile ad network, and the processor inside of the actual like devices that were supposedly viewing the ads did not exist inside of that model of laptop. Like you couldn't buy it anywhere, and it was at a huge scale. And I'm like, they're spoofing these devices, right? They're not real. And so that was like an interesting example of like, they kind of like then moved away from that ad network where it's like, hey, yeah, iPads never had these chips, right? Inside of them. So somebody's like doing
fascinating.
faking impressions. Yeah. Yeah. And that happens all too often, right? Unfortunately. And so, it's really about like stay away from the bad actors so that yeah, your ads can reach actual humans and you can get a better return on ad spend simply by the virtue of eliminating the fraud, you know? So I actually would say, I'll take a bold stance here. If you're advertising in programmatic, the single best optimization that you can have is eliminating the fraud. Even if you do
Wow.
no other optimizations, no geographic, no individual, demographic, behavioral, whatever, simply eliminating the fraud will almost double your performance in many cases.
Crazy.
Wow.
Crazy.
So part of me is thinking about this basically from how I would view Nielsen data. Is there going to be an
Mm-hmm.
opportunity for you down the road to basically have some public visual data sets that you're offering to the public and saying like, hey, here's our free data sets that we're allowing you to kind of plug and chug into. This isn't the full, Aunt Jemima. This isn't everything.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
here's a nice little teaser of some data.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. No, no, totally. That's actually a big thing that we're working on, right? Is starting to put out public dashboards. And even beyond that, like I said, not necessarily just the ad fraud stuff, but like what are the trends in some of the categories and subcategories, right? What kind of discounts are your competitors running? What sort of bundles are they doing? What new products are they launching? What are they taking off the shelves? How do prices change? Like that sort of stuff, right?
That's
What
exactly right.
new martech tools are they using? But yes, yeah, we absolutely are going to start publishing some of those public dashboards. And then the big push that we're working on over the summer is actually launching this into an MCP. So you can get all this
Oh.
data straight into
Oh.
Claude,
Let's
ChatGPT,
go.
whatever, and it can instantly. So the cool thing about that, right,
I love
uses
that.
less tokens because you're getting the ground truth from us, right?
Yeah.
Second thing, eliminates a lot of it doesn't eliminate all, but a lot of hallucinations, right? Because it's hitting against an actual source. So it's
Yeah.
not having to go out and scrape the data and then collate it and then bring it to you, right? And it's all the same public data everybody else is using because it's behind the scenes with us, right? And so you're working off of actual like ground truth, really, is like the goal here
Wow.
is like we should all be working off of information that you can verify as real. And then a big step, another thing that we're working on also is actually setting up, that wasn't a joke, we're actually setting up our own lab doing mass spectrometry or mass spec like kind of work, right, among other things,
Let's
which
go.
is to actually say like which of my competitors are telling the truth, right? Which of
Woo!
my competitors actually have in their product what they say is in their product, or do they have like less or more of it, right? Is there ingredients in there that shouldn't be in there, right? Big believer in, put stuff in your body for consumers, right? We're not launching a consumer app. This is really B2B focused, but
Yeah.
like, yeah, this is a big deal for like you run a supplement brand, you run a cosmetics brand, whatever, like those are huge deals. And so, I think that's going to be like a really interesting point of competition, right? Because you start to see things like, hey, they're using these ingredients, but the price point is just too low to be real.
Mm,
And that's the sort of anomaly that we're setting up to
the
detect here,
anomaly.
right? The
I
anomaly. Yeah, I always want to use the word anomaly because there has absolutely been times where I see an anomaly and I'm like, wow, they just have, they innovated, they did a great job, and that's totally valid. But the point is like we should all be working off the same truth set. We all need to live in the
yeah.
same reality. And from there you can do a lot of interesting, cool stuff.
I love this idea of basically getting all of your competitor data. And then, how I would do this if I was running a brand is I would showcase all of that as third party data and basically
Mm-hmm.
say, hey, this is what we're doing. This is a
Mm-hmm.
third party lab that has tested all of our competitors. Here's what they're doing. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
pass the snuff test. I think
Yeah.
that's a massive service that you could be offering to brands. And I bet you a ton would take you up on that because so
Oh
many
yeah.
brands, that's the initial pushback is like, what is the viability of what I'm actually putting in my body?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's a huge thing that we're doing. And actually, one of the things that we have built and we've been testing with like a handful of, private closed beta sort of customers is really you can
Ooh.
even take it a step further and put your own brand URL or your product URL in, right? And AI will actually go and cluster the most similar 50, 100,
Mm.
1,000 products, right? So you don't even have to know who
Ooh.
all of your competitors are because we do, because we scrape like 12 million Shopify stores every 2 weeks, right?
That's
So
awesome.
it's a massive amount of data, but it's incredibly interesting, the insights that come up in the industry trends and everything else. So
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
J- I think Jeremy, a man of data,
A man of
a
data.
man of truth, a
I will
verifier.
I believe that train enthusiast is another, no, it's, yeah, look, there's a little Tylenol American, is a little bit. Look, I've got obsession with data and truth, right? And I wear that proudly. So, I think that we'd all do better if we were all playing on the same level playing field and in the same reality.
Well,
I agree.
Here is my proposal. My proposal is, as you are scraping the gazillion Shopify stores every week, and you've got all of the things, and you're working out the third-party testing and all the, I feel like we need to just carve out a little 5 or 10 minutes here for you to come back to us quite regularly and show us what you're finding. I mean,
I would love that.
I feel like there's only so many people that have this kind of info and data and verifying the internet on behalf of all of us.
The internet,
verifying the internet, joining it all together, mapping the relationships, everything else, awesome. Right? And so, yeah, no, definitely would love that. I'm always happy to share. We put out a lot of stuff for free. We're going to keep putting out a lot of stuff for free, right? You want the in-depth stuff. Nice thing too is we're priced way, way below most of the other folks doing industry reports out there, where you'd pay thousands of dollars. We're talking like tens to hundreds. So
okay, let's do this. Let's do this, Jeromy. First of all, before you get out of here, tell everybody where to find you, where to follow you, where to talk to you, all of those things, and then we just need to email after this show and decide when you're coming back to talk about the next report, the next trend,
yes, sir.
What you have discovered.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I would love to. And so, best way to reach me is on X at JeromySonne, Jeromy Sonne. With always down to chat, always into I'm a love of the game guy, right? So I'll never get bored with it. So we'll have some fun, and would love to come back on and show you some interesting reports and stuff from time to time. Absolutely.
We will do that. Day part data as it comes to us next time. Jeromy, we appreciate you joining us. Look forward to having you back, man.
Appreciate you having me.